Neoclassicism emerged in the late 18th century when architects in the Enlightenment era started to move away from the ostentatious Baroque and ornamented Rococo styles. Influencing the arts and government, Neoclassicism defined order, simplicity, clarity, and reason. It was adopted by the United States in effort to connect intellectual thoughts, fine arts, literature, and politics. They established the republican government modeled on Greek-Roman successful political models. Some of the influencers of Neoclassicism would be Thomas Jefferson. He was a big advocate for the adoption of the Neoclassical style architecture, where he commissioned government buildings in this style. Johann Winckelmann was considered as an originator of art history. He devoted his works into Greek art, serving the cultural history, and developed his beliefs that Greek art was superior over any other art, that Greek art was worth imitating. In his book, The History of Art of Antiquity, he details the influences of their climate, government, and way of thinking that helped influence the shift into Neoclassicism. Now let's review some of the architectural elements of the Neoclassical style. Now architecture takes on many forms and we see it everywhere. The Greeks have essentially decorated the ancient building system of the post and lintel construction. Now there are three main building types. There's the temple style, which is the most common, the Palladian style, and the classical block style. And within these plans, the basic form of the naos, which are the interiors of the rooms that held the statues, were categorized in ground plans according to column arrangements. Now, the columns, which would be considered the posts, can be categorized in classical orders of the Doric order, the Ionic, and the Corinthian order. Leading upwards the capital, we reach the pediment, which is usually a triangle shape placed above the lintel or entablature. Now let's take a look at a famous building that was designed by George Post, whose design was inspired by the Neoclassical style. Its massiveness was to symbolize the security and strength of the institution, the New York Stock Exchange. The facade's composition is dominant, executed in marble. The two-story podium with the portico above, which is formed by 6 enormous fluted Corinthian columns, each at 52.5 feet high. There is a glass curtain wall that measures at 96 feet wide and 50 feet high, placed so that light can fall into the trading room floor. The columns continued upward to an entablature with a frieze that bears the inscription New York Stock Exchange. Then there is the pediment above, which is surrounded by dintel and modillion cornice that is ornate with anthocus leaves. The pediment opening is filled with the sculptural group that is designed by Ward's John Quincy Adams. The sculpture consists of 11 figures, and it is representing the integrity protecting the works of man. Each figure has their own symbolism. The central figure represents integrity. On each side of her, they're symbolizing works of man. Now, some of the other figures are representing mechanical production, international trade, realizing intelligence and science, agriculture, mining, and the wave is the influence of the stock exchange stretching from sea to sea. So a fun fact is that these sculptures were originally sculpted of marble weighing at 90 tons, and within a few decades the pediment was cracking, so people were in danger of being crushed by the integrity of the New York Stock Exchange. So they had to be replaced with copper sheets on a skeleton, which reduced it to 10 tons. Now, this New York Stock Exchange building was designed with the elements of symmetry, massiveness, taking on Greek and Roman-inspired designs that all characterizes the neoclassical architectural style. Another American government building that was influenced by the neoclassical architecture was the Treasury Building. The building has had many turn of hands of architects overseeing the construction and renovations. What we see today are a combination of the original and redesigned architectural elements. Overall, the plans were original to the rectangular floor plan resembling perimeters from ancient Greece buildings. The major architecture feature I'd like to point out are the Ionic colonnades along the 15th Street, measuring at 466 feet long. Mills, the architect who designed this in 1836, used the Ionic order column style similar to the Acropolis. Above, the entablature has the inscription, "The Treasury Department." Its simplicity of the pediment, unornamented design, does not take away from the massive position it takes settled above the entablature. In the past few moments, I have analyzed how Neoclassicism has influenced and was adopted by the United States, not just with its design styles, but also from a governing platform where they modeled after the ancient Greeks and Romans. Understanding art history and preserving its influences in our architectural designs are seen everywhere. Neoclassical design was the most prominent and chosen for this country. Thank you.